Hey friends, do you or someone in your organization think that technology is going to solve all your problems, but maybe deep down you know a little bit better? Well, today we're going to unpack some of the most common technology misconceptions we see. The first misconception we see is that technology is always going to help us be more efficient. The things that we hear when dealing with this misconception are, hey, if we get this new CRM, our processes are going to be more streamlined, they'll be more efficient, they'll be automated immediately. And that's just not always the case. There's a saying that when we get a new tool, we begin by making that tool fit the old way of working. And then over time, we start to adjust our ways to support that tool. And this is kind of what we see in terms of this misconception, in that we get this tool and we want to bend it to the wills of our old process, as opposed to saying, hey, we actually need to optimize our process first and then build a tool around that. The other thing that we see all the time is that there's typically a steep learning curve when you're adopting a new technology system. So we do a lot of Salesforce implementations, and very seldom do we see everybody just adopting it right away. So you have to plan for this. So there might be a momentary setback where you're actually not that efficient. You're a little bit inefficient because you're learning this new tool and it takes a bit of time. So we care about this misconception because the frustration that we have when we maintain this, when we have this, is that we're disappointed in the tool. We're disappointed because we're not immediately more efficient. And so it starts to set this weird relationship and expectation of the tool and how it's supporting you in your organization. This next one is one of my favorites, and it's something that we hear all the time. It's that one size fits all solution. Sure, there's a ton of great platforms out there that can accommodate multiple types of workflows, but just because it can doesn't mean it's right for your organization. So for instance, there's platforms that might have plug and play features that immediately meet one of your department's needs. But there might be another off-the-shelf solution that meets the needs of another department, right? In that time, how do you make that decision? If you're stuck on the one size fits all, you won't even include or evaluate that other tool because you want everybody on that one platform. Well, that might not just be the best use of resources, time, and energy for the effectiveness of your team. So the previous one was one of my favorites. This one kind of makes me sad, just to be honest. We get the question of like, well, can we drop headcount if we're more efficient or if we have this tool? The misconception is tech replaces human input. We hear all these things like automation and more efficiency, and we have AI. And so we immediately start to go towards technology can replace humans, which is scary and not at all accurate. The key thing in some of this human input element or this misconception is we want to talk about augmenting human input or augmenting just the energy and the thoughts of human beings. And at the end of the day, we want to automate repetitive tasks as opposed to the critical thinking that people have to do on a day-to-day basis to get the work done. A lot of the time when we're talking to new organizations or new prospective clients, we get this question of, well, can this tool integrate with our existing tech stack? It's a great question. However, there is a misconception in today's landscape that most of these tools can be immediately integrated and adapted to existing technology stack. Now, with this misconception, it's not that these tools aren't able to do it. The misconception usually comes in around the work effort necessary to make that integration happen. So oftentimes we see like, hey, we just want this fundraising system to be plugged into our accounting system. Well, without truly mapping that out, without understanding the true process and what everybody wants to see in both systems, you can get yourself into a big mess. So it's important to level set on this misconception because it takes a lot of time, energy, and just really thoughtful process. So we already touched on the misconception that tech's gonna immediately help us be efficient. This one's kind of funny as well, in that a lot of people think that technology is going to solve some of their underlying issues within their organization. We're talking about the deep-seated things that are more rooted in culture and people, and just the way that tension is resolved. And technology, no matter how good it is not actually going to resolve that stuff. So when we go through technology implementations, more often than not, if there really are underlying problems within the organization, the technology project and implementation and adoption is only going to accelerate exposing those underlying organizational issues. So ideally, those issues are solved first, and then you move into a technology engagement. There's a lot of awesome, beautiful, easy to use technology out there. But just because it might be easy for me to use does not mean it's going to be easy for somebody else to use. The big misconception is that technology is intuitive for everyone. And that's just not the case. When we see organizations abiding by this misconception, what happens is they don't invest in training. They're just assuming that everybody's going to be able to pick it up immediately. And what happens is people get frustrated, they don't actually follow the process, and they're putting data in all different types of places where they shouldn't be. The key thing here is never assume that it's going to be intuitive for one person or for everyone within the organization. Really seek to understand, make sure you invest in training, and make sure everyone in the organization understands how and why they're using a specific feature in the system. This last one, I feel like we just don't talk enough about in this space. And the misconception is that we think everybody has a good relationship with technology. And the reason I stress relationship is that more often than not, when we're talking to a prospective client or we meet somebody else in an existing client, we start to uncover what I would call past tech trauma. They've been a part of some other type of implementation. They poured their blood, sweat, and tears out. They tested, they did all they could to make this thing a success. But in the end, it didn't really pan out and it just sucked the life out of them. And so we assume going into every engagement that there's someone or multiple people within the organization that have had some type of traumatic experience like this. And so if we don't address that, don't heal that, and help them understand why this is going to be different and then truly be different, we're going to get those same results because there's immediately resistance to that. So if you're going into a new implementation, whether it's internally led or you're pulling in a consultant, make sure you get a true understanding of those stories, those experiences, because I promise you they will pop back up and it will make it really hard to make that implementation a success unless you understand those things from the get-go. Selecting, implementing, and supporting technology is hard work in any organization. So if you need additional resources or tools, go ahead and check the links in the description below. And if you found this video useful, go ahead and click on the link to watch the next video.